I'm Iris Ruth Pastor, and we're here today for a little small talk with Dr. Frances Walfish, who is a leading child and family therapist in private practice in none other than Beverly Hills, California. And she is also the author of a new book called The Self-Aware Parent, Resolving Conflict and Building a Better Bond with Your Child. Welcome, Dr. Fran.
Thank you.
We are discussing a topic that is absolutely flooding the airwaves, the internet, the print media, and it concerns Amy Chuow's book, Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. And Chuow is a professor of law at Yale University, and she wrote this book that is centering on raising her two daughters in the Chinese way. So, Dr. Fran, I want to ask you this for our listeners' benefits. How would you describe her method of child rearing?
I would say specific to Professor Chuow, it's a very, very one-sided, extreme, strict way of not only disciplining, but having very clearly defined expectations toward excellence and perfection. And she discloses that she was pretty harsh in her disciplining techniques, which included no play dates, no developing and nurturing friendships with other children, extremely intense, long, uninterrupted hours of homework performance, violin, music, and piano study lessons. It was all geared toward achievement.
I want to just tell you something. I don't know if you read what the columnist David Brooks had to say about her book, but I found it very unusual what his take was, and I was wondering if you could comment on it. What he basically said was that I think she's the one who's wimping out on her kids, not us American parents. Because he said by not allowing your kids to go to like on play dates or, for instance, a sleepover with other 14-year-old girls, that's where they learn how to navigate. And that's when they learn like the nuances of behavior. So she's really the one that's wimping out by keeping them at the homework table. And I was wondering if you could comment on that kind of unique perspective.
I don't think it's a secret that I lean more toward David Brooks's philosophy of parenting. I don't know if I'd call it wimping out, but it's really, he's talking about developing emotional intelligence, which I am all in support of, as well as IQ and intellectual endowment. And I think Professor Chuow leans too far on one side.
But the thing that really got to me was it created such an uproar among American parents, particularly American Jewish parents. And I was wondering, I mean, it probably kind of feeds into the fear of Chinese people, taking over the economy, and we're not preparing our children to be competitive in the world. But how do you address that with parents? I mean, the point about following through with consequences is excellent, but can you go a little further and address that?
Yes, glad to. Under stress, I promise you and all of your listeners that under stress, and I define stress as you, the parent, want your child to do something he doesn't want to do, or you want her to stop doing something she wants to continue to do.
Yes, an everyday occurrence.
Absolutely, every hour.
Right.
Under stress, if you have not taken that hard look within, you will automatically revert back to what your mothers and fathers did to you. And for me, that means smothering or overprotecting a child. For someone else, it means getting frustrated with a short fuse and losing their temper. Maybe it means being worried or having self-doubt. All of those things need to be examined. So yes, we need coping skills for handling disappointment. And I think that's the Asian culture's criticism of America. We're raising entitled, spoiled children. It's a legitimate point. It's a legitimate debate. But my retort back to that is, We don't want to stifle children's creativity and have them complying out of shame and humiliation, but rather we want to equip them with the ability to wrestle with things that do not go their way and be able to cope and adapt to disappointments, to delaying gratification, to being able to talk about their feelings and be able to move on.
Is this generation too lax in not giving their children enough structure and kind of letting them, do Facebook, do video games as much as they want, and not really making them toe the line when it comes to this? Is that relevant?
Iris, not only is it relevant, you're a sophisticated mom.
Oh.
That's a great question. I'm going to try to respond in a couple of bullet points.
Okay.
Number one, I want to give the Jewish American family and parents a little bit of extra credit and praise, because I think they are asking the children to do appropriate expectations, but they're not following through when the child resists and opposes the expectation. So expectations are clear and need to be clear. What has to be spun is a positive spin to the child of that must feel so good to you when you sit and practice for 20 minutes and get it.
So good to them, not good to the parent.
Exactly.
Good distinction.
Iris, you got it. You got it. Because what we're doing is we're trying to penetrate a deeper sense of self, a growing sense of self-esteem. We don't want them to have self-esteem based on just pleasing others, including authority figures. We want it to come from feeling good about ourselves so that kids are self-motivated. That's one. Number two, make your expectations realistic. To make it specific to the age and what is appropriate to accomplish without the child having a legitimate reason to be angry at you. And even Amy Chua found and discovered that her way was a radical way that worked for her firstborn daughter and did not work for her second child, who strongly rebelled against her mom and helped Dr. Chua realize, or Professor Chua, that this way does not work for all children. And the bottom line is, no way works for all children.
I want to thank you so much for your insights today. You're humorous, you're exuberant, you're enthusiastic, and it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Fran.
It was my pleasure. I look forward to being with you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And before we close, I do have one final thought, and it's kind of a rhetorical question I want to pose to our listeners that I read online, and it was from this woman called I Wonder. And she said, if Chua had raised Einstein, would there be an Einstein ever? And I think that's definitely something to think about. I'm Iris Ruth Pastor, a contributor to Let My People Grow, which is an outreach and engagement initiative.